She's Zuko's grumpy girlfriend. She's the opposite of the hyper-perky Ty Lee, and she is a genuinely great character. Despite appearing in relatively few episodes of the show, she makes a distinct impression, and she has a genuinely intriguing character arc. She doesn't appear until Season 2, but like Toph, when she enters the picture, she becomes difficult to forget. In fact, there are more than a few similarities between Toph and Ty Lee. They were both raised by rich parents who didn't care about them, and that fact has made both of them cold and bitter. They pretend they don't care, but that's just a coping mechanism. In reality, they care a lot. But while Toph gets to join Team Avatar and travel the world, exploring and defeating bad guys, Mai is stuck in a much more complicated series of emotional and political situations. She helps Azula track down the Avatar mostly because she wants to lessen her boredom, but her life becomes a lot more interesting when Zuko returns to the Fire Nation as a hero. She hasn't seen him since he was 13, but they have not stopped caring about each other. Their childhood crush develops into a real romantic relationship. However, the good times come to an end when Zuko decides to leave and join Team Avatar. She has to decide if she is going to stand with her boyfriend or the current government of her country. This is Avatar Explained, Mai Edition. She, Ty Lee, and Azula are the show's answer to a structural question it faced going into Season 2. In Season 1, Team Avatar constantly fought Zuko. In fact, Zuko as a character was created so Team Avatar could battle the evil of the Fire Lord, while the real Fire Lord stayed off in the shadows. However, throughout Season 2, Zuko changes. His goal for most of the season is still to capture the Avatar, but he is by and large not actually doing that. He's just trying to survive. Because the show keeps Ozai in the shadows until the start of Season 3, it needs someone to hunt the Avatar in Season 2. Otherwise, the individual episodes would not feel as connected as they should, and there would be less of a sense of constant danger. Enter Azula. They have talked about her enough that it doesn't seem like that annoying thing too many shows do, where a new character is introduced out of nowhere, and then the show expects us to find this new character threatening, even though they have given us no indication who this character is. It's not like that at all. We know exactly who Azula is. She is Zuko's perfect older sister. She was born lucky. She's the child who lives up to Ozai's expectations, and during the start of Season 2, as we start spending time with her, we understand why. She is soulless and cruel. Whereas Zuko is desperate and miserable even at the start of the series, Azula is, on the surface at least, calm and controlled and calculating. But Azula needs sidekicks. If she were traveling alone, we would not get as much of a chance to see her personality as we should. So she recruits two people who are much different from, and, for lack of a better phrase, much less crazy than her. There's Ty Lee, a very cheery girl who is living a wonderful life at the circus until Azula forces her to join her. And then there's Mai, who's goth and gloomy. She's apathetic and she is determined to leave her boredom behind. She would rather go on a dangerous quest to capture the Avatar than stay in Omashu, which her father, a man who has risen to the top of the Fire Nation bureaucracy, largely by putting his head down and doing what he has been told, has been appointed to run. She does not seem to have much respect for her father, and why should she? In all respects, he seems to be rather unremarkable. He's not completely incompetent, but compared to someone like General Zhao, he is basically a non-presence. When Azula comes to Omashu in episode 203, he cowers. Admittedly, there is more to him than that. In the comic trilogy Smoke and Shadow, he founds the New Ozai Society, a reactionary organization devoted to returning Ozai to the throne. He's a major villain in those comics, but even then, he is still weak. He's still anxious. He's still kind of pathetic. It's no surprise that Mai leaves him in episode 203. She wants adventure. She wants excitement. If capturing the Avatar is how she's going to get that excitement, so be it. Besides, she is a fan of Azula. There are a number of reasons for this, but the most interesting and powerful one is that Azula is unafraid. She's psychotic, but she's relentless. She's determined, and she doesn't let anyone stop her. It's not hard to see how that could be appealing to Mai, someone who has spent her life having to behave properly. As we learn in episode 305 at the beach, she always had to be quiet. She always had to be the good little girl. She couldn't risk getting into trouble. She couldn't risk doing the kind of silly but ultimately harmless things that many teenagers do. The family was focused on propelling Mai's father up the political ladder. Azula is the absolute antithesis of that obedience. While to Ozai, she's his perfect daughter, to the rest of the world, including Mai, she's someone who makes her own rules. Until she suffers a mental breakdown at the end of the series, she represents order, not chaos, but it's her own order. It's the kind of order that demands action, not passive obedience. Mai has been told her whole life that the right thing for her to do is to keep a low profile and to do what she is told. Is it any wonder that she is so bored with the world? Azula, meanwhile, tells her that the best thing for her to do is to join her. Not quite as an equal, but still as an active participant in Azula's quest to capture the Avatar. Given the options that Mai has, is it any wonder that she makes the choices she does? However, she doesn't love Azula. They're friends, but they are not as close as Azula likes to think they are, and this is mostly because Azula uses fear to control everyone around her, including Mai. Azula doesn't see friendship as two people caring about each other deeply. She sees it as controlling others with fear. This attitude is interesting in that it comes from self-loathing on Azula's part. She would deny that she hates herself, but she does. Or at least she thinks that everyone else is always going to hate her, no matter what she does, so she can't have any real connections unless she maintains these connections with fear. It's tragic, but what it means is that while Mai likes Azula, she will never choose her over the boy she loves, even though that boy has done her wrong in the past. The boy is, of course, Zuko. The relationship between them is quite interesting. Not because of where it ends up, of course. They've had crushes on each other since they were little kids, and now that they're grown up, they have a real romantic relationship. That's not exactly new or original. Also, it makes two relationships, Katang being the other one, wherein a boy who was in love with the girl practically as soon as he laid eyes upon her ended up with her at the end of the show. The only other pairing is Suki and Sokka, and he was fully in love with her by the end of the first episode they spend together. What I'm saying is that there's not a lot of variety or innovation in these relationships, but that's not a problem, at least for me. Katara and Aang are sweet together, and I love how Zuko and Mai keep breaking apart and coming back together. Less because of concrete problems in their relationship, and more because their lives are simply heading in different directions. It's one of the most brutally honest depictions of a relationship in the whole of Avatar: The Last Airbender. The time they spent together was abruptly stopped when Zuko was exiled. He was only 13 years old then. We don't get to see how Zuko's banishment affected Mai, but it's not hard to guess. She was devastated. This is a boy who has been an important part of her life since they were little, and suddenly he is ripped out of her life. It's hard to think that this didn't drive a wedge between her personal feelings and what she thought she should feel as a citizen of the Fire Nation. She grew up in a very patriotic family. Her father is so attached to the combative militarism of the Fire Nation that when that begins to change, he starts the new Ozai Society. It wouldn't be considered proper for her to criticize her nation in public, but it's hard not to think that she would criticize it in private. That said, there was nothing she could do to undo Zuko's banishment, which continued until the end of Season 2. It's not like she herself has any real political power. Things change when Zuko returns. Half his face may be scarred, but she doesn't care. It doesn't even come up. It certainly helps that puberty has been good to Zuko. He's not a scrawny 13-year-old anymore. There's one shot in episode 305, The Beach, when a flock of white birds flies by a shirtless Zuko, and this shot is so overt in its praising of Zuko's physique that it's almost to the point of parody. But no, Mai is not only attracted to Zuko because he's good looking. In The Beach, there are a lot of good-looking guys, but despite what the jealous Zuko thinks, she doesn't care about any of them nearly as much as she cares about him, and he cares about her too. Sure, he may complain that she rarely lets herself feel any emotion, but he's complaining about this because he wants to understand her better. He knows the relationship isn't working as well as it could be, and he wants to know why. He accepts that much of the problem is his fault, but he also thinks the relationship would be in a better place if she was more open about what she was feeling. When she does open up, it's to yell at him, but he likes that. This is very representative of Zuko. His greatest struggle is not that he knows what the problems are in his life, but cannot solve them. The problem is that he doesn't know. He's never sure. He's always caught between a few options, none of which he's positive are right. It's unfortunate for their relationship that when his mind finally does clear, it's when he decides to leave her and the Fire Nation capital city to go join the Avatar. He feels terrible about leaving her, but he knows it has to be done if he is to redeem himself. Though he leaves her a note, that's not nearly enough. Up until this point, the relationship has been bumpy, but mostly strong. They have had beautiful moments together, such as when they watch a sunset. Mai complains, and Zuko finds her complaining cute. He says she's so beautiful when she hates the world. She responds by playfully saying that she doesn't hate him. Then they kiss. When she's with him, her gloomy demeanor does not exactly melt away, but it lessens. She becomes sweeter and more tender. Zuko, too, changes when he's around her. He looks almost giddy. One gets the clear sense that to him, she is the most perfect person in the world. There are a lot of bad things about returning to where he grew up, but Mai is not one of them. She is the one bright spot. She is the one reason he hesitates to leave. We see this explored more fully in episode 314, The Boiling Rock Part 1. Sokka and Zuko are sharing an awkward but sincere conversation. Sokka is wondering if Zuko left behind anyone he cared about on his way to join Team Avatar. Zuko responds that he did, and her name was Mai. Sokka is surprised, and he asks Zuko if he means the gloomy girl. Zuko responds that he does, and he smiles as though he's walking through a pleasant dream. There is real closeness between them, and he knows he has betrayed that. When he is later captured, Mai comes to see him in The Boiling Rock Part 2. She goes after him, and he doesn't know what to say. Some part of him believes he deserves the verbal lashing she gives him. No, he does not regret joining Team Avatar, but he feels worse than he already did for leaving her. Trying to justify his decision, he says he did it for his country. Mai is confused and scornful, saying he betrayed his country. But that's not how Zuko sees it. He doesn't hate the Fire Nation. He hates Ozai, and to a lesser extent he hates all the Fire Lords going back to Sozin. They have created an era of fear, and Zuko says it needs to be replaced by an era of peace and kindness. He knows his nation can be better, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to make it better, both for his own sake and for the country's sake. That is more important to him than individual relationships, but that doesn't mean he doesn't care about those relationships. Mai grows to understand this. Sokka, Zuko, and Suki make their escape, and they are pursued by Ty Lee and Azula. Mai has to choose. On one side is Azula and her country, both of whom have kept her in line with fear, and on the other side is Zuko, the one person we see actually make her feel good about being alive. She chooses Zuko. This is the show sending a strong message about love being stronger than fear. It doesn't feel cheap or sentimental, it feels earned. Azula says she can only rely on fear, but this reliance on fear leaves her with no one. When Azula asks Mai why she did what she did, Mai simply responds that she loves Zuko more than she fears Azula. Mai may not be the most emotive character in Avatar: The Last Airbender, but she is a skilled warrior, and she is fearless. I can totally see why Zuko loves her like he does. She's more concerned with her relationship with him than she is with all the expectations and burdens placed upon her shoulders. When she saves him from Azula, she says she's saving the guy who dumped her. She's still not okay with what Zuko did, but she knows he did it for moral and philosophical reasons, not because he doesn't love her. At the end of the show, they're back together, and their relationship is as strong as ever. They may drift apart, but they always find a way to drift back together again. Avatar: The Last Airbender is largely a show about the difference between expectations and reality. Few characters are as they appear to be, including Mai. At first, she appears to be nothing but this gloomy girl who doesn't care about anything. And, well, that's not wrong, but there's so much more to her than that. She has hidden depths. When she cares about something or someone, she doesn't back down. She doesn't bow down. She stands up and fights. Whatever her faults, she's bold and determined. She doesn't waver. She makes her own path, instead of following down the path Azula pushes her down. So thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like and comment and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can, and you want to see more videos like this. Keep watching Avatar. It is a show full of fantastic characters who don't get as much credit as they deserve, Mai being one of these characters. And tune in soon for the next Avatar Explained video. I swear it will be coming soon. Thank you all again. Adios, comrades.